Welcome to the Contrarians and tonight's topic. I've had it with all these lineup changes. I want to welcome the Parish, the Elder, and Martin and myself are here. Let's talk about this. We want to hear from you in the chat. Let's do it. Welcome to the Contrarians, and tonight we have a wonderful topic. I don't know if any of these gentlemen came up with this topic, but the topic for tonight is I have had it with these lineup changes. I mean, look at Foreigner. There's not anybody left. In fact, I did hear that Lou Gramm is going to fill in for some dates, though.
Yeah, it's bizarre. Yeah,
Lou Gramm's going to fill in for his own band.
Yeah,
well,
exactly. There you go, Elder. You know, that's how surreal we're at now. He's
so we may want to touch about that. So we're looking at these bands that have had multiple lineup changes, and we've had enough. So I want to welcome the Elder of Rock, the Parish of Rock, which both of these gentlemen probably cancel each other out. But whatever. So far, we're okay. And then Martin and myself. So, gentlemen, how are you? Nice to see everybody.
Yeah, good to see you guys.
So, yeah, this whole Foreigner thing. Was it Kelly Hansen?
Yeah.
Is under the weather.
He's been with him for like 25 years or something. He's been with him a long time.
The fact that Lou Gramm is going to fill in, I find that really...
He's as a guest or something.
Well, I find that fascinating because... when I saw him on the 80s cruise last year, he had no interest at all when he did his interview about filling in or collaborating with that version of Foreigner. Lou was bitter party of one. So I find, but people change. So he's filling in.
Maybe they offered him some great money. Probably is what it is.
Money, probably money.
We were really desperate, and so here you go.
So anyway, we're just going to go around. We're just have a general discussion. And like I said, welcome everybody. Nice to see every Elder. What's your whole thoughts on this whole... You were here first, so I'm going to throw you under the bus. What's your whole thoughts about these bands that continue? So many lineup changes, no one left. What's your whole thoughts on this? How do you look at these bands?
Yeah, I think a lot of it might depend also on when the lineup changes are happening, who is being changed out. A lot of times if it's a singer or a guitar player, that seems to be always being changed out, consider like the front of the band, or they're not, so it always seems like, so especially with the singer, it always seems to be really kind of weird when it's because it's a different voice, so it's like it brings a different thing. It's like an identity, maybe almost. Now, Iron Maiden were able to do it early on, before I think Paul Di'Anno was really entrenched in the band, and so that's why it kind of. And then Bruce Dickinson, because they didn't go through every singer after singer. But I'm thinking of Skid Row right now, who are once again in search of a singer. They've been through a few, and the last singer they had I thought was really good. But of course he's gone now, and I don't think it wasn't due to really, it's just due to his personal health. So it wasn't I think necessarily a personnel, or people didn't get along. But you just kind of wonder, like Skid Row has been now like this. I mean, they think that was their fourth or fifth singer, and for a while it kept happening pretty frequently, like every year or so. Like it was Tony Harnell for a little bit, and then GP or ZP or whatever his name was, and now it was Eric Gernwell, I think was the last one. It just seems like it's hard to identify because especially with the front of the band like that, it's hard to identify, like what the identity of the band's going to be, the musical direction, I think. So it kind of is difficult sometimes, but like if it's like maybe I hate to say it because I'm a bass player, but it's like a bass player or something that keeps, it's not such a big deal. But and then if a person's in a band for a while, and then like with Molly Hatchet now or Foreigner, there's no like original members, but there have been people there that have been there a long time. So it kind of carries that on a little bit and makes the identity a little bit better. I don't know.
All right.
Yeah.
Am I making sense?
So you're saying that if a band has had a lineup change for a long time, I mean Kelly Hansen, what he's been in Foreigner since for how long?
I would say since 2000 at least.
Yeah,
I think
a long time.
early 2000s at least.
But most of the hardcore fans, at least this is my opinion, really want Lou back in the band singing.
Mm-hmm.
Same with Skid Row. They want Sebastian Bach. I don't know what Sebastian did to burn his bridges, but if they really wanted to make some dough and get back out there and really hit it hard, put Sebastian back in there and they would be like another level. But whatever,
Yeah, it seems to be. I think something must have been said way early on back then where it's just not forgivable for him to be back in the band.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Like I said, we don't know. But
I agree with you on this singer thing, but the way I look at it is I've always thought this. I mean, I've always argued that the singer is like more than 50% of the band in most cases. But what I do like is when the singer comes in and they get an album or two under their belt. I mean, I brought a couple examples. This is the notorious Benoit David Yes album, but after this we get John Davison, right? And John Davison can play guitar. He looks the part. He sounds great. He's in there writing. So all of a sudden, as long as that singer comes in and establishes himself, I think things are fine. And Yes has gone through lots and lots of different lineup changes. I mean, the last time I saw them was bizarre because they played nothing in fact, they played one drama era song and then everything else was older than that. So they were a real oldie set when I saw them with Deep Purple. And speaking of Deep Purple, this was the other example I brought up. Is that, people talk about this band having, I guess we're down to one original member at this point with this band, right? Ian Pace. And, but still, I think they did it a good way. Steve Morse comes in, he establishes himself for a long time. They're excited about Simon McBride in there as the new guitarist. I think bands can evolve as long as you say, Elder, the whole Molly Hatchet situation, because I took those out as well. So I brought a couple Molly Hatchets, and I just want to bring this band up because, again, no original members, but Bobby Ingram has been in there the whole time, and we also forgive bands a little more when the lead singer's gone because they keep dying, and other members of the band as well. So we had Phil McCormick go from that band, but I think Bobby's done a good job of carrying on the legacy of this lineup. And it's funny with these, so it's a bit of a twofer. I brought out my Skinnerd as well. A bit of a weird situation with the Southern bands, including the Allman Brothers, is that you forgive them because everybody's dying all the time, right? And so you have to replace these members, sort of thing. But it's almost the same situation with Bobby being the continuity of Molly Hatchet. I think in this band, you've got Johnny Van Zant being the continuity. You've got a guy that looks like Ronnie, sings like Ronnie, is part of the family. He's got the same last name. He's been in there for, I think, 35-40 years now. Ricky Medlock has been a great addition. But the other thing with both of these two bands is, and the Allmans for that matter, what they also do to compensate for the changing lineups is they make very, very conservative sounding and hard hitting albums. Not the Allman Brothers, but both of these bands are heavier than they ever were in the past. I think Molly Hatchet's a better band than they were in the past. I think the early stuff is overrated. But they both make very, very on brand. I almost call it Walmart Southern rock, albums, right? And so that makes perfect sense to me. And just to finish off my little spiel here. So Pete and I did a show recently where, talk about being on topic. We've got a tour with Sweet, Molly Hatchet, and April Wine, 0 original members across all 3 bands, which is crazy. So Sweet is pretty unforgivable because now there's 2 Sweets. There's an American Suite and a UK Suite. The UK Suite has Andy Scott in it. It's legit for that reason. It's not terribly legit. It's just Andy. But then the other one had Steve Priest, and now Steve has died, and so they're not really legit at all. And they're the one going out and doing this tour. April 1's got Brian Greenway, but nobody else. Brian Greenway's not even original, but he's classic lineup, right? So I just feel like as long as these lineup changes happen, I like the idea of them happening one at a time. And sticking there for a long time and seeing stability and just watching that stability go. And if it's the lead singer, he's got to be writing his own lyrics. It helps if he writes music. He's got to take command of that frontman role. Then I think you're sort of in good shape. So, on this topic, I think I did a History in 5 Songs with Martin Popoff podcast episode about, what did I call it? I think I called it the 300-year anniversary tour. And what I meant by that is that bands like Lynyrd Skynyrd and Kiss and maybe the Allmans could last for hundreds of years if they just keep doing this. Blue Oyster Cult. I've just been arguing on Facebook about Blue Oyster Cult. It's like, okay, you guys want to do this right? One of you guys has to retire, Eric or Buck, and then the other one has to go for a whole year. And then get quietly replaced. Richie takes over. Jules is in there, right? So, and same with Skynyrd. It's like Skynyrd has seen so much replacement over the years, but it's gradual enough that it sort of works. And it also works because when you get a singer in who's of a younger rock and roll generation, say 10 years or 5 years younger, you get that extra longevity because you can't fake the voice. The voice is going to age, right? Everything else can be taken care of, kind of thing. And same with Kiss. It's like Kiss maybe could go out. Bruce Kulick rejoins. One of the guys, Paul or Gene, quits. It's a big news for a minute. They make an album, they write, they make another album, and then all of a sudden, okay, Paul can quit now, and all of a sudden, Kiss carries on for 300 years, sort of thing. So that's my spiel. I think it can be done, but it's got to be gradual, and that lead singer, more than anybody, has to absolutely establish dominance in the band.
Thinking about what Martin said.
Yeah. I mean, in response to that last comment, Martin, we did a show on a similar topic about a year ago. Mm-hmm. And on that show, I made the comment that the Harlem Globetrotters have been going forever by continually replacing people in the squad. And in fact, they even take on the same personality and the same character in it. I got a lot of stick in the comments. There's a big difference between a sports team that can continually replace and a band where people are loyal to the band members generally, and people citing, for instance, you could not imagine Van Halen continuing with maybe Wolfgang replacing Eddie, even though there might be a logic to that, and you might be able to argue a case for that. People just wouldn't accept it. So I kind of was in the same place as you on that, but clearly not many people were. Now, I thought I'd look at today slightly differently. So I've just gone through a series of bands. I noted down a series of bands where for some reason I find it acceptable and for some reason I don't find it acceptable. And just to challenge myself over this. So as an example, so I started with where a band must be the whole band. So the most recent example is probably ZZ Top. I was borderline with ZZ Top continuing with Dusty dying, but Dusty apparently kind of endorsed his replacement. So, okay, slightly don't really agree with it, but okay, maybe. I don't like the fact that the bassist who's coming is almost playing it like a caricature of Dusty with the fake beard and the hat. That I don't like. But then I saw in the news the other day that Frank Beers had to step away because of ill health, and they're still touring. And to me, I mean, I love Billy Gibbons. I know he's kind of the heart and soul of the band in many ways, but I just can't accept them going with just Billy Gibbons. It just doesn't make sense.
Well, it's like a Billy Gibbons solo then, kind of.
It is, yeah. Yeah. But so, I mean, it could be that it's contractual obligations they're having to fulfill, and that's why they're replacing Frank, and maybe it's not going to be a permanent thing. But even so, it feels to me as if they should cancel, personally. I know I haven't got tickets, so it's easy for me to say that. But it does feel to me as if they should just cancel. So that doesn't work for me. Other bands that don't work, and the next one, most people would say they don't give a shit, but they shouldn't be continuing under any circumstances. But I have a huge problem with Motley Crue continuing without Mickey Mars. Mick Mars is so integral to that band, as more so than any other member who might be more famous and more notorious. But for them to continue, and I think John Five's a great guitarist. He's done some good stuff, got no problem with that. And actually, as a selection, probably not a bad shout. But to me, Motley Crue continuing without Mick Mars. Now, as I say, many people would say they should have stopped when they called it quits before and then did the U-turn. So, but if you put that aside and ignore that for a moment, just the principle of them continuing without Mick Mars seems wrong to me. I can't get over Dave Hill continuing Slade without, and even when it was two of them, Don Powell and Dave Hill, and even accepting that Noddy Holder and Jim Lee has endorsed it, don't have a problem with it at all. It just isn't right. And that's not just because it's not got Noddy Holder. If it was Noddy Holder and Jim Lee without Dave Hill and Don Powell, I'd think it was wrong as well. To me, you need all four of them. For it to be Slade, it has to be the four of them. And with any one of those missing, the band isn't the same for me. So there are examples of where it has to be the whole band. I've got examples of where I'm okay in some cases with some of the members being left. So I don't particularly have an issue with Guns N' Roses. I like Guns N' Roses. We've talked about it before. I've seen them several times with just the three of them. I have no problem as long as it's Axl, Duff, and Slash. I'd be fine. If say Duff went and Izzy came in, I'd be fine. I think 3 of the 5 classic lineup is acceptable. Anything less than that, I would find unacceptable. So that's different to say the Motley Crue, where I actually don't particularly have an issue as long as there's a core there. And as an aside, they've just replaced the drummer has just left Guns N' Roses, been the longest drummer with Guns N' Roses, been with them 20 years. I didn't even know who he was. Frank Ferrer, apparently. Big thing about him been with them 20 odd years, didn't even know that was the name of the drummer. So it can show you how sometimes the replacement can be with a band a long time and not make a huge difference. But one where I've got an issue, and in some ways I feel bad about the fact I've got an issue with it, is Magnum. So Magnum was always Bob Catley and Tony Clarkin. Tony passed away beginning of last year. Magnum wasn't going to continue. Then Bob decided he would continue with it, just done a tour. Maybe if it's a one-off tour just to celebrate the band one final time, maybe I could just accept that. But it sounds like they're going to continue. And to me, if it's not both of them, it doesn't work for me, really. Another example of that is Black Star Riders. No problem with Black Star Riders having a constant change of musicians in the band, as long as Ricky Warwick and Scott Gorham were in there. Bearing in mind it came out of Thin Lizzy, it needs to have Scott Gorham in it. So when Scott Gorham stepped down in 2021, as much as I like the new album, it doesn't feel right that Black Star Riders are continuing without him in the band. Even though partly because the reason they started Black Star Rises was because they felt they couldn't record new material as Thin Lizzy. So that kind of spirit seems to have been lost by losing Scott Gorham out of the band. But then on the flip side, ELO, I'm seeing them later in the year. There's only Jeff Lynne left. I know they're now just called Jeff Lynne's ELO, but effectively they're ELO. They could have Bev Bevan back in the band. I wish they had Bev Bevan back in the band. Should be there. But I'm kind of just about okay because it was always Jeff Lynne's band anyway. He was always the centerpiece of the band in many ways. So I can find that just about acceptable. And likewise, I saw AC/DC last year with just Brian Johnson and Angus Young left, and I found that just about acceptable. Maybe partly because of Stevie Young being in there as well, so there was still that family connection, and he'd been in and out of the band. So I'm kind of mixed. I mean, coming back to Sweet, I for a long time would not tolerate the new Sweet, or the Sweet with just Andy in the band. Just wouldn't accept it, and did a U-turn a couple of years ago. But I started looking at, and the other thing about Foreigner, I didn't realise that Lou was coming back, because the thing I read in the press the other day was that Kelly wasn't going to be able to do the Canadian tour, but didn't give a reason. And they had a stand-in from somebody who'd been in the Foreigner musical show, Jukebox Hero. So they've got a stand-in for the stand-in, and that just again seems. I mean, it comes back to what you were saying, Martin, about can you continually replace members, and maybe you can. But then I started thinking about some of these bands. Some of these bands are what I would now call cabaret acts. Does that phrase translate in America to cabaret acts?
Yes, absolutely.
100%. 100%.
Yeah, so these are bands who are kind of doing the tour, and the people who are going along have no real interest or knowledge of who was in the band, who sung it at the time. All they want to do is have a good time, let down their hair, have a dance, and listen to the music they like. And there's huge amount of cabaret acts that go around. Forget rock for a moment. You can look at disco bands where there may be one member left, or there may not be any members left from the 70s. You know, soul bands, sort of new wave bands, and new romantic bands from the. And in fact, you've been on the cruise recently.
Yeah, there's plenty.
Where a lot of those bands might have one member left that was in the original. But most people don't care because they weren't that big a fan in the first place. They know the songs and they want to have a good time. And I think Foreigner kind of fits into that category as an example. And I think some of the other bands, maybe Molly Hatchet, maybe Skinner, do the same thing. That people don't really know, and the people who are going along wouldn't know who the original band members were anyway. It's just the songs they're familiar with. But the one thing that kind of got me thinking between why do I find it acceptable and why don't I find it acceptable is if they've released good new music in the last few years. So the thing that won me over with Sweet was Sweet have released a couple of albums that I think are really good albums. The thing that wrote and sort of turns me on still to Leonard Skinner and Molly Hatchet, and you said it earlier, Martin, they've released really good albums. You go back to other bands which maybe aren't quite in the same category for lineup changes, but still nonetheless do have continual lineup changes like Uriah Heep, Saxon, Judas Priest. You kind of tolerate the changes because they're bringing out good music. Yeah. So whilst they continue bringing out good music, maybe it doesn't matter so much who's in the band. And the classic to that is, I think Motorhead could have had almost anybody in Motorhead, but it couldn't be without Lemmy.
Yeah,
so there was one.
Same with Megadeth too. You could do just about anybody but Dave Mustaine.
Yeah. So there are some bands where one person is irreplaceable and nobody else really matters. And there's been some great people in Motorhead after that classic lineup. And I've really enjoyed seeing them live. But it could have been almost anybody up on stage, really, apart from Lemmy, I think. So I think there are some bands where there is one or maybe two key players who can't be replaced. I think if bands are continually to make good music, maybe it doesn't matter so much because the band you're seeing is still releasing music and the records are good. And I think if they're cabaret acts, effectively, the audience don't give a shit really. So they could.
I guess notoriously the one band that violated that is Thin Lizzy when they went out with Phil touring, and then they even put out a live album one night only without Phil, right? So I don't know. Can you guys think of anybody else who went over that sacrilegious line of going out audaciously without the one key member?
I think in the case of Thin Lizzy, a lot of people didn't accept it. They did it. And they released some records, but most of the people I know, and myself included, were not happy with it. And I think the other thing is it does get to a point of age when you realise that bands they really are in their twilight years, and they've maybe got one tour left, you kind of feel, well, I do anyway. I don't begrudge Andy and Sweet, because what else is he going to do now? I don't begrudge when Scott Gorham took out Thin Lizzy one last time with Ricky Warwick and a few of the others, because what else is he going to do? It's almost the swan song. I felt like that with AC/DC, really. It's the swan song that they're never going to do it again. It's kind of a final goodbye to the fans for the ones who are left. So, but the time you're talking about it, it was earlier in the careers, and I don't think they had the same level of tolerance over it.
Yeah, that was with John Sykes singing, right?
Yeah, so, exactly.
Yeah, Lizzie, yeah.
I mean, obviously, yeah, it's a big travesty. It's sacrilegious and all that. But you know, I think the thing that makes it sacrilegious to me a lot is because I'm a big lyric guy, and I want that front man to be singing lyrics he wrote, sort of thing. I don't want him to be singing the lyrics of the dead guy, right?
And you mentioned AC/DC. That's another one where I think it's been proven anybody could do it, but if Angus Young's not there, it's not gonna, it's not going to
work.
Yeah, it's not going to work because they went out on the tour with Axl, and Phil Rudd hasn't been there, and Malcolm wasn't there, and Cliff Williams was there for the last tour, but not this current one. So
yeah,
another one I accept completely is Pantera, because I call it what you might, but I think Phil Anselmo is 50% of that band at least. He's the lyricist, he's the front man, he's the singer. He loves metal. He's like a metal scholar. So he's super important. You got Rex knocking it over the 50% mark. You've got Zach as the only guy who could replace Dime. They were buddies. Yeah. They're similar kind of guys. He's of the same stature. Probably even a bigger when you think of how big those Aussie years were. And then you've got a drummer of total stature. So that's the other thing I think is important is you need legends in there, but you've got to walk that line. Like what age are they, kind of thing. So the cool thing is with Charlie, you've got a guy exactly the same age as the Pantera guys. So you've got Rex, you've got Phil, so you got half the band mathematically, more than half the band, I think, because I do way up play the front man lyricist vocalist over the guitarist, even Eddie Van Halen. I would accept a version of Van Halen without Eddie in the band as Wolfgang, Dave, bring Mikey back. Alex, come out of retirement, whatever. But no, I'm fine with the Pantera thing. I don't know. What do you guys think of Pantera?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it's fine because of who they got in there to, like you said, Zach was a good friend of Dime's, and also Charlie Benanti himself is kind of rock royalty or metal royalty for doing the drums, and could definitely. So it's not like just it's definitely people who knew them and respected Pantera, as that was replacing them, I think. Yeah. So I have no problem with Pantera. Now it's gonna be interesting to see when they do new music. They say they're hinting at they might. So that'll be interesting to see how that goes about and how that plays out as far as what the fans will accept. But I think they will.
I totally hope they do, and I want to see 2-3 albums out of them. Right,
it'd be
establish
interesting,
themselves as the continuity, rather than just the live situation. It's so much more validity, right?
I've not seen much kickback at it either, Martin. I mean, most people, crowds have been huge. Most of the people, when it was announced, it seemed to be overwhelmingly positive. They're coming over to the UK, and I think, again, it's been sell out. And I'm looking forward because they're playing Download Festival. What was the Donington? So looking forward to that.
And they're doing the Black Sabbath.
But they're going to be at the Black Sabbath as well. So I haven't said, and I think it's for all the reasons you said, really, that they've done it respectfully. They've got the right people in. They've clearly doing it seriously rather than just doing it for the money, if that makes sense. They're doing it because they want to do it, and they bit of a cliche. They're doing it for the art, not for the money. Kind of. That's how it feels.
The amazing thing, Parish, is that they are if they're not bigger than Pantera ever was right now, they're at least as big as Pantera ever was for 3/4 of their career. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And another band I just thought of is Accept, who are now Wolf Hoffman is really the only original member. Now they've had Mark Tonillo in there for a while. He's been there for 10 years, but Peter Baltz left, and now he's in with Udo. And I think Udo is just as much as many is has more accept members than accept.
Yeah.
So it's kind of weird.
Accept then?
Yeah, can we accept?
So the fan base, what would they accept more? Accept or the Udo band?
They would love both of them, you know. They
Both, yeah.
And Udo absolutely makes accept like music, and accept makes totally accept like music, even like old accept. But yeah, and you know, Mark's been totally accepted. He's a great frontman, super guy. They made great consistent albums. Obviously, Wolf is very important in that band. But you know, it's the battle of the vocalists, right? And but Mark did it right. Like Mark established, you know, that beachhead by being the vocalist on whatever it is, 4 albums now, 5 albums, whatever it is. So yeah, pretty cool situation there. And I always love that when you've got both going at the same time. It's like for a long time we could appreciate Marillion and Fish, right? You could appreciate Peter Gabriel and Genesis, or Phil Collins and Genesis,
or Ozzy and Black Sabbath.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe on the Genesis.
Maybe what?
Front.
Oh,
well, it seems like Genesis is very divided. Either you like Genesis with Phil or you like Genesis with Peter Gabriel.
Yeah, it's a good point, but you know, to Elder's point is like I don't know anybody who wasn't fans of Black Sabbath and Ozzy at the same time in the early 80s, right? We loved them both, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Even though Black Sabbath was doing, now they were doing kind of had the thing with the lineup changes for a while, with Tony really being the only original member there, and so it seemed like there was a revolving door, which I think maybe hurt them. Because of this, you know, who's singing for Sabbath now kind of thing was happening. And so you weren't sure what kind of direction they were going and who was in the band for sure. Geezer was in and out. Bill was in and out, you know, they're having different drummers, different bass players. So
to that point, Elder, again, I think the big situation is when you replace that singer. It really is good when you bring a guy in who's an authority. He comes in there, he takes over that frontman role. He's got some history. That's why Ronnie made so much sense to come in there. It's like we all respected Ronnie when Bruce comes in a Maiden. We all respected Bruce. I really don't like when a band brings in a singer who's like way younger and has no history kind of thing. Oh, we just wanted an unknown who's a great singer. It's like, no, we want a guy who's got thoughts in his head. He's not just a mouthpiece. He's going to come in. He's going to write lyrics. He's got a history, and we believe him as a frontman sort of thing. I really don't like that. Just the super young pup who comes in, who's like, oh, he can sing. Like, who cares?
What about Judas Priest when they brought in,
Ripper.
Yeah.
Well, okay. The funny thing there, and I've always thought this is just
I don't think
bizarre,
they let him
right?
write anything.
And you hear this all the time, right? With these bands, it's like rock and roll is such a chaotic thing, right? So they go through this massive, years long process, all these rumors of all these guys, and they bring a guy in, and they don't let him write, but he doesn't even seem like he's that much of a writer Ripper at the time. Like it's not like he even wanted to write all that much, right? So it's like you go through this massive process. Why do you bring in someone and say, oh, he doesn't write, but that doesn't matter. Yeah, it doesn't matter if he doesn't write. You know, we just like his voice, just singing, whatever. But yeah, he didn't have a lot of history and stuff. He was amazing. I think Ripper's a great singer and a great frontman, and he proved himself to be a great writer and artist over the years. He's matured and stuff. But I that just drives me nuts when guys hire people on, or when they hire people on, they like audition 100 guys and they hire the heroin addict, right? You know, it's like, come on, guys, you know, you looked at 100 guys, right? You know, it's so funny how that, it's just so rock and roll that it's, he did you know he doesn't write songs? You know that, eh? We didn't think about that.
I will mention something that I saw on the 80 cruise that I was pretty impressed with. Huh?
Are they on that?
Who?
Quiet Riot? What was Quiet
No,
Riot?
they're on it next year. They couldn't. Something happened. They had to cancel.
Oh.
But Firehouse played on the cruise. Now we know CJ Snare passed away, and they have a young kid named Nate Peck singing. Now, Nate, holy mackerel, can handle it, nail those vocals 100%. I'm not a big Firehouse fan, ladies and gentlemen, but everybody really accepted him because he was just so... The kid can sing. He's only like 23 or something. But everybody on the ship were like going, oh, it was just, the reception was unbelievable. So I think sometimes, you know, you can have a talent that can come on. And
that's a whole different thing. To me, that's like you're going to that. It's almost like you're going to watch a great running back or a great receiver. Like you're just going there to watch, you know, an athlete. But it's got nothing to, you know, he didn't write the songs. And so that's, you know, I guess you can put that out of your mind, which brings up a whole point about this whole discussion. Every time everybody kind of defends this whole thing that happens, they say, look, man, they're out there entertaining. If you want to go, and you're just going for the songs, man, it doesn't matter who's in the band. You are going there to celebrate those songs. And if people are going to buy tickets to do that, you know, good on them. You know, what else are they going to do for a living? Like you say, Parish, you know, about Andy, right? It's like, what else are you going to do? Right. So you got that. What else are you going to do? And you've also got, look, if people want to go have fun and pay the ticket and go, and they want to celebrate these songs, let them at it. Right.
Well, that's my dilemma. So I can accept it with Andy, but I can't accept it with Billy Gibbons. It makes no sense, does it? There's no sense in what I've just said at all. Doesn't make any sense. But nonetheless, I can accept one and not the other. So,
well, Parish, you know, they could get Greg Morrow in to drum, you know, who has drummed on Rhythmine, and he's an amazing, one of the greatest drummers of all time, and he's drummed with Billy, and so they've got like a half. They've got like a half ZZ Top drum. And I love Elwood. I really do like Elwood, so I'm fine with him too.
I think it depends upon how big of a fan you are. Parish, how big of a ZZ Top fan are you?
I'm a huge ZZ Top fan.
See, I'm not. I can take ZZ Top. I can take it. I can leave. I don't really. I don't have a problem with ZZ Top, but I really don't give a shit if Billy Gibbons is going out by himself. So I think it has a lot to do.
Probably.
With your, like, April Wine. We've got Brian Greenway. Love Brian Greenway. What he brought to those classic era April Wine albums. Love it. But no Miles Goodwin.
And it's a shame in ZZ Top that we lose Dusty, who is the best singer. Of it. He sang about a third of the time, right?
And the blend of Billy and Dusty together, phenomenal.
And to be very controversial for a moment, if I go back to Foreigner, I don't think that Lou Gramm was actually that good a frontman. So great singer, brilliant on record, but every time I saw them live, he didn't come across very well.
Well, what year was that? What year was that?
81, 85, 81, 83, 85. So he just lacked some form of presence for me. I mean, and I'm talking about in arenas, fairly big, maybe in theatres or whatever. But he lacked. Whereas Kelly, I think, is a fantastic frontman. And actually, I think I prefer seeing Foreigner live with Kelly
I prefer not seeing Foreigner live at all.
Well, that's a different story. That's a different story.
I saw the original lineup when I was a kid, Double Vision tour. I'm good. Nothing's going to come near that, so I'm good.
Yeah, well, that's fair enough.
And we bring up Foreigner, and then you think of Styx also, who are kind of
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, no, and they're still out there, but they, you know, many people thought maybe they couldn't have done it without Dennis DeYoung, and now that guy's been in there a long time. Gavin, is that his name? Gavin, I think.
Larry Gowan.
Larry Gowan, sorry.
And but the thing is, you've got Tommy, you've got James Young, Chuck Bonazzo comes out every now and then. It's enough, and you know, if you have Tommy and James Young singing, it sounds.
That's what I mean, yeah.
And Lawrence sounds like.
Yeah.
But they are also producing great records. Yeah. Last two Styx albums have kicked butt.
And Larry came in and took control, right? He's a front man on the keyboards. He sings. He's amazing, right? He's in there helping on the writing. He's an important member of the band. It's very much like Ricky Medlock coming into Lynyrd Skynyrd and taking control, right? I mean, he's literally the leader of that band in a way, right? Him and Johnny.
He was in the classic lineup for a short period. Wasn't he?
He was original.
Ricky. He wasn't one of the
was
original.
the drummer before the albums.
Yeah.
But he's
was it before the albums? Was it? Yeah. So I don't know if that gives him much credibility in the fact that he's not on those big albums. But at least he's got that to say that he had some history with the band. It wasn't just sort of plucked out. I mean,
and you know what gives him credibility as well is Blackfoot. He's athletic.
Exactly.
He's young. He's a guitarist. He can sing. All that stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, anybody else have anything to add? I don't know if we determined anything.
Well, the one I'm going to throw out there that I found absolutely bizarre, and I can't remember how long ago it was, probably about 10 years ago, was the sensational Alex Harvey band touring without Alex Harvey. I mean, to me, that it'd be like Alice Cooper touring without Alice Cooper, wouldn't it?
Pentagram did that a few years ago without Bobby Liebling.
Yeah,
it was I think Wino doing the vocals or something. So it's because he couldn't do it. He was, I think, having legal problems or something.
To be fair, Alex Harvey had passed away, and the rest of the band decided to keep going. But nonetheless, it still seems bizarre. It still seems bizarre. It's the sensational Alex Harvey band.
Well, it's still the
Alex Harvey.
But it's still
Parish,
the sensational Alex Harvey.
Well, that's true, because I mean, I've seen in recent years, James Brown's band without James Brown. Yeah. So I suppose it happens.
Well, see, Parish, that's the next level. That's what we're going to see next. We'll see Ted Nugent tour without Ted Nugent. We'll see Bruce Springsteen tour without Bruce Springsteen. John Waite tour without John Waite, right? Steve Perry tour without Steve Perry. Just call it that, right? Just call it the guy
without Ozzy. Yeah.
Alex Harvey broke the mold, right? And it's like, now let's push on. We just want the Christian name and the last name. That's the name of the band, but the guy ain't there. Right?
That's it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, if they could, I'm kind of in that. I'm not. I don't want to see Foreigner without Mick Jones, Lou Gramm, everybody. But if they can go out and people still want to pay the ticket price to see them, and they have a good night, they enjoy the music, who am I to get in that way, in the way of that? But, eventually they might as well do it, because people aren't going to care after a while. None of these bands are going to sell anything anymore.
Well, the bit we're missing is where this is going is going to be ABBA, isn't it? ABBA.
As we keep getting
Kiss,
older,
avatars.
people aren't going to care.
Well, that's what I mean. ABBA, the whole Avatar thing, that we won't need original members or new members. They'll just go out with a...
Well, Parish, the other place it's going, our buddy, John Gaffney, just did a nice video on Aussie Gods of Rock and Roll, that new, I think that's the name of the song, that Billy Morrison kind of put together, and they've got the symphony in there and stuff. There's a whole video on it, right? And this song came out. I think the song goes back, but I think it just came out in February or something. But he makes a point about how AI is doing some tricky things, right? And he's saying, is there some AI to this? Are we past auto-tuning, right? So the neat thing about that video, I watched it today, and the cool thing about it is Ozzy is absolutely, so they did a very smart thing. They made it like an in-studio video, right? Mm-hmm. So Ozzy is right on the mic singing, and he is so synced up perfectly, and you hear his voice, but his voice is impossibly way better than it could ever be, right? So it's like, as John says in the thing, did they mix in 50%, 75%, whatever? Are they sampling Ozzy's voice to give to Ozzy to mix with his new voice? And so when you're on there singing, he could have sang all those words into a mic, and they could have erased all of it and replaced it with AI Ozzy the artist himself sampling himself. So it's almost like there's not even any legal issues. That obscure legal issue everybody's talking about, how, when you use AI, you're scrubbing everything out there and pouring it in. So you're taking little bits of everybody's creative works to make AI. But, it's so he's positing that, okay, so are they literally sampling old Ozzy to put on mic, and Ozzy say, you watch it and it looks like he's singing, right? It's perfect, but you listen to it and you go, yeah, this is very, very, very sophisticated auto tuning, to the point of, have they used some sort of AI on this sort of thing, right? But there's the next step. It's like, when these guys even can't sing anymore, they could at least forget about going out live, but they could at least make very, very convincing music. And even it's even more convincing if the guy's literally singing on mic what he's doing, right?
Have you ever heard the AC/DC Back in Black songs with Bon Scott singing?
Yeah.
There you go, Martin. Yet. There's your answer, because obviously they're taking Ozzy from a certain era, and you just have the computer processes it. No big deal.
But the good thing about that, so I constantly kind of look up and see, what have they done with new AI classic rock songs? And surprisingly, there aren't a lot of people doing this. It's not a massive cottage industry, right? Mm-hmm. So it's almost like a novelty that's come and gone sort of thing. But what makes it work really, really well, and there's a long story, I won't go into it, but I had a guy like contact me, and he works at a university, and he did these amazing Thin Lizzy songs where he wrote all the music and the lyrics, and he did an AI Phil Lynott vocal on top, right? But what makes it work the best is when you're using the lyrics and the phrasing and all the stylistic things of that singer, rather than the crude way they've been doing with AI recently is like, let's have Freddie Mercury sing the Metallica song, right? And all they do is they just take everything James did on Enter Sandman and flip it into Freddie's voice or something, right? And it's like, well, Freddie doesn't sing like that at all. Those aren't his lyrics, blah blah blah. So the neat thing about the Ozzy thing is that you can really calibrate it to that perfect, exactly what you think of Ozzy. But if they would have been even more smart about it, they would have made Ozzy sound at least somewhat old and frail. But he sounds like an absolute vocal titan on this thing. He's like singing like a bird, right? Which is, it's if you're a deep enough. But I read all the comments, and people are, oh my God, Ozzy sounds great. I love this. It moved me to tears and all this. I saw no negative comments, right? So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you don't put old Ozzy in there mixed in. Maybe you just give them new Ozzy and do a few more songs and do a few more albums. I think that's way more close to what the fans might even want out of Ozzy, if they want anything, than to watch him at this concert.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would be cool. You also wonder, like, if Ozzy's like writing lyrics, and even if after he passes away, like, they still may be able to do albums with his lyrics using AI too.
Yep, for sure.
Of course, 100%. Sharon's gonna milk it forever, as long as she's around.
Yeah, and she'll replace herself with a robot of Sharon.
Well, she looked at her recently. She looks like she's already replaced.
I was going to say, if she hasn't already.
Yeah.
There's a lot of work going on there.
Maybe she'll be a rock and roll manager for hundreds of years.
Let's just hope.
AI, yeah. My manager's AI Sharon Osbourne, so don't step out of line.
Yeah. All right. Well, anybody else have anything to add? Ladies and gentlemen, we're just talking. We haven't solved anything, but we do want to hear from you. When do too many lineup changes kind of spoil it for you? We do want to hear from you. So let us know down below. Anybody else have anything to add? And we'll wrap this up.
Wrap her up, man. Wrap her up.
Yeah. All right.
It was good. It was fun.
Well, I want to thank the Elder of Rock, and of course, and the Parish of Rock, and Martin and myself are here. And darn it, if you'd like to be on these panels, we'd love to have you. We do have a Ko-fi. Buy us a pint or a cup of coffee if you'd like to support us that way. If you'd like to take it one step further and you'd like to be on these panels, we have a Patreon where we throw up the videos a day before. There's You can go on there and rap if you want. It's a whole thing. The cool kids are there. And if you'd support us that way, we most appreciate it. But really, the Contrarians is all about turning you on to music. Please let us know what you think about this. How many lineup changes is there? I mean, are you still into Foreigner? Let us know. All right, everybody. Gentlemen, we will see you on the next one, and have a good one.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thanks, Martin. See you later.
Bye, everybody.